Since none of the movie theaters in my town got The Zookeeper's Wife or Trainspotting 2, there was only 2 movies to see, and since I already saw Ghost in the Shell, well, today, I saw The Boss Baby. And I was actually kind of surprised by it. So, The Boss Baby is one of those animated films this year that a lot of people saw the trailer for and thought, man, that is going to be one awful animated film. And you know what? We have a lot of those kind of films coming out this year that just don't look very good at all. Well, I can tell you this much, even though I was definitely not impressed with the trailers at all and wasn't looking forward to this movie, I have to admit that, it was actually okay. Well, what is this movie really about? Well, we've got this main character of young boy, 7 years old, named Tim. And this is the story about him meeting his new baby brother. Well, unfortunately, his new baby brother is really odd. First off, he arrives in a taxi by himself, dancing down the sidewalk, if I might add. He wears a suit, a tie, carries a briefcase, looks like a little boss. And of course, takes over the whole house.
He's taking over the whole house! Look at him! He wears a suit.
He's like a little man.
He carries a briefcase. Does no one else think that's, I don't know, a little freaky?
Well, you carried Lam Lam around until you were like...
This is not about Lam Lam.
And it turns out this Boss Baby can talk and is voiced by Alec Baldwin. Well, it turns out this particular baby is forever a baby, thanks to a secret formula developed by this secret organization of babies that are pretty much grown-ups, just babies. Sort of like this secret corporation, this secret organization, this spy stuff that their mission is to make sure there's enough love to go around. Or at least babies are given the most love. Unfortunately, something has upset that balance, and now puppies are given more love than babies. And if puppies keep dominating the love pie chart, yes, of course there's a pie chart in this movie depicting where all the love is given. So now the Boss Baby needs help uncovering the truth and needs the help of this boy who is only helping him because, hey, if I don't help him, he's going to stay a baby forever and be my little baby brother. I don't want that because I want the love of my parents. And so, alright, I'll help you to get rid of you.
If I don't succeed with this mission, I will live here forever with you.
Okay, I will help you, but just to get rid of you.
Deal.
I guess that's enough without giving too much away, even though I probably gave a lot of the plot away there. It's at least half of the movie, probably. So yes, I have to say that The Boss Baby wasn't a completely awful, terrible movie. Not one of the worst animated films of all time put on the big screen. It was okay. In fact, there are a few things that I actually loved about this film. So let's just start off with the good. First, the voice acting is pretty damn good. Alec Baldwin as the Boss Baby, and Miles Christopher Bakshi as our main kid, Tim. They did really good voice work. Honestly, those two are the best voice work in this movie. Steve Buscemi's good as well, but you don't get a lot of him. The other kids playing the other babies was good as well. The only 2 people that I felt were phoning it in the movie were the 2 parents, Jimmy Kimmel and Lisa Kudrow as mom and dad, or dad and mom. But then again, they're not in the movie all that much, so that's okay. And at first I wasn't a big fan of the animation, especially when I was watching the trailers for it. It looked a little too simple, it looked a little too cartoony and childish. I understand that's probably the vibe it was going for. It almost reminded me of Storks, but less detailed. Not as undetailed as a few Illumination movies, like The Minions and Despicable Me 3. Yeah, that's coming out this year too, isn't it? But ultimately, I didn't mind the animation when I was actually watching it on the big screen. And there are a few moments where it gets creative, it gets a little retro, sometimes it gets 2D, and those are the times in the animation where it got unique and I really found myself enjoying. Heck, there was a few moments where it felt like there was some horrific and some terrifying moments in the movie that I appreciated as a horror fan. But sometimes when we get in the head of our main character, our 7-year-old boy who is very creative and very imaginative, an overactive mind, sometimes it gets a little flashy, while other times it just really shines in the movie. And I will say that there is a lot of variety in the humor, more variety than I ever expected from the trailer. You do get your very cute baby jokes and your gross out baby jokes, and I figured that that was going to be most of the humor in this movie, as well as the overacted, over cartoony, crazy moments that you're just like, really, that's happening in this movie? I thought that was going to be its main ploy with its humor, but there is some adult jokes as well that I appreciated, and a lot of the adults laughed at in the theater that I was seeing the movie in. Like, there's this whole Elvis impersonator joke that I found one of the funniest moments in the movie. Also, there's this one ploy that the baby and the boy do in order to try to dupe these women into bringing them to the convention center in Las Vegas, because there's this whole climax in Las Vegas and they don't have a ride, and so they pretend like they're poor and the baby is sick, and the women go, "Aw," and that was actually really funny. There was a few really funny moments in this, and there was some adult humor in it, and there was some moments where it's just funny seeing this baby be more boss-like and talk about business and talk about management and talk about charts and stuff, where it's like, okay, that's kind of funny as well. Now, I will say that I never really laughed out loud during this movie. It was more chuckles or just smiling, but I appreciated the effort. And I have to say, there was a lot of people in this movie theater when I saw it, and a lot of kids, but even more adults because, well, parents, you got two, and if you got only a few kids, sometimes you have more parents. There were some adults going by themselves to this movie. I mean, I was one of them. Adults laughed more than the kids during this screening. Yes, the kids laughed at all the gross out moments and the slapstick comedy that is throughout this movie. But I heard more laughter from the adults than I did the kids. Hell, there was these two stoner dudes in the back of the theater. At least they sounded just like you'd expect a stereotypical, very generic stoner dude to be in a movie. They sounded exactly like those people, and it sounded like they were freaking out. They were laughing throughout the whole movie, and during one point in the show, I think it was towards the end of the film, don't even remember which part it was, they started freaking out and going, "Is this reality? Oh my God!" That was happening in our movie theater, which, frankly, I don't mind. It was actually hilarious. But honestly, there's one thing about this movie that I really love, and I wasn't expecting at all. There is layers to this movie. Well, this is from the creators of Shrek, so I guess ogres and onions aren't the only things with layers. I guess the Boss Baby does too. God, that was a terrible joke. But anyway, we get this whole film through a narrator. Tobey Maguire is narrating the film as he's an older person telling someone this story when he was 7. At the beginning of this film, you see that him as a 7-year-old has an overactive mind. The first thing you see in this movie is our main character, Tim, our young 7-year-old, going on these imaginative adventures that are all in his head. I think Tobey Maguire even says at some point at the beginning of the film where he doesn't remember exactly what happened. This is just how he remembers it, and maybe it was just his overactive mind, maybe it was just his creativity, but this is how he remembers it, or something along those lines. So right off the bat, you have an unreliable narrator, and that really makes you question reality in this film, or if this is all just in his head, if this is all just a creative, overactive mind imagining all this stuff happening. And for the most part, that actually works in this film. Because even though you have moments where he's clearly imagining things, even the main story, you question, okay, is this real, or is this all in the imagination of this boy, or is this all just a fantasy storytelling of this person telling it to some kid or something like that? Or our narrator telling it to some kid?
Look, the kids are finally getting along.
That's nice.
You want to know something really, really crazy? This did a better job of making me wonder what was real and what wasn't than most psychological horror movies, or at least psychological horror movies of last year. Yeah, go figure. The Boss Baby does a better job at making you question what's real and what's not than The Forest and 400 Days and movies like that. Yeah, I went there. Sorry for you 400 Days fans, but this movie did a better job. And what really helps the unreliable narrator of this film and you questioning what's real and what's not is that the main plot of there's not enough love to go around, this whole main plot, this whole main mission for the Boss Baby and the kid does coexist and does parallel the whole problems of him adapting to a new baby brother. Because our main character has to cope with the fact that, hey, he's his only child, and now he has his first baby brother, and now all the attention is on his new baby brother, and there's not enough attention on him, and he has to start coping with the fact and and there's this internal conflict where he's like, hey, there's not enough love for me. I want love. I mean, this movie gets to a point where it feels like the whole thing is a metaphor for the internal conflict for our main character. Yeah, you didn't think the Boss Baby would go that deep, did you? It actually does, in a way. And it's actually, that's really the best part of the movie. But as much as I love that part of the movie, as much as I think that this is a much deeper and a smarter film than it plays off to be, it still ultimately became more of an average film. Yes, even though it has layers, even though it is funny, even though there is some really smart things about this film, I can't deny that ultimately it just was an okay movie. And I never really cared about the two main characters. But even though there is heart in this film and there is a bond that happens between these two characters, just as you'd expect, I never felt for the characters enough to feel like that was very gratifying. Instead, it did feel a little bit more predictable and a little bland at times. There's a lot of funny visual gags, there's a lot of zaniness, it is crazy, it is fast-paced, it does feel zany and crazy just like you'd expect for maybe Storks or the Lego Movie or other movies along that line. So if you're a fan of those types of movies, you might like The Boss Baby, but then again, the humor is subjective, of course. Everything's subjective when it comes to art, so... Well, I can't believe I just said art for... But then again, films are. No matter how generic or bland a film is, it's still art. And so ultimately, I'm still going to give The Boss Baby 3 stars. So, have you seen The Boss Baby? What'd you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews of 2015, 2016, or 2017. And I guess now that this movie review is done, I get to have a cookie.